Hey, Honey Wash Day. This is Toksa Hour. I am Maggie Ross, and I'm live from Porcupine, South Dakota, along the Porcupine Creek, where the porcupines roam. And again, I will say for the millionth time, there should be a porcupine tree that would fit right into all of that or something. Anyways, good morning. We're here again with our I've officially given Chaz a title. She's our guest host. And then until she wants to say, yeah, be cool.
Yeah. Well, hello everyone. It's rainy here in Eagle Butte. Thank God we needed the rain. We're near drought conditions everywhere, I think, and I hope everyone is getting a little bit of it. And it's the solstice, so happy solstice to everyone. I think and also I want to acknowledge Juneteenth. It was Juneteenth this weekend, and so I've been thinking a lot about that. I haven't posted, but I'm going to post later on TikTok about how it's Juneteenth is like the first holiday about disinformation, right? It's like the propaganda. America is such a crazy United States. We're such a crazy a country full of like these inconsistencies. We talk about liberty and yet have slaves. We talk about, all that stuff and Juneteenth being, just a holiday celebrating the fact when folks finally found out that they were free. And they should have known a year beforehand when the Emancipation Proclamation, went in. But they did not, and finally they were told. And thank God it's a holiday because it pisses off racists. And if I were in charge of the world, I would put Black folks in charge, because in so many ways I feel like Black folks are Indigenous, like, right, they were Indigenous people stolen, and so they are very inclusive, and we would have a better place with them. But uh, the uh, the way that things are happening right now, just the outright race war kind of stuff happening by the feds and the cops everywhere. It's just very disappointing that we're still 250 years in and still got very segregated societies and poverty and all this ridiculousness. And we got these rich people watching the UFC in the White House, right?
So did they get struck by lightning? Was it like the Thunderdome?
I hope. I wish. I was praying for it. Hey, that's gonna get me on a list. Apparently, the White House put out a list of people who are opposing them, like a website of shame of certain reporters who are out there and are being targeted. The way the mainstream media is attacking anyone who's outside of its purview. And with the I think with the administration's well, I mean, they're attacking these anyone who's saying anything out, but the mainstream media is what's supposed to be saving us already. Instead, we're all just like down the road. Apparently there's some fighting going on between BB and Trump, and maybe Trump is in uh at the retreat. Where's the retreat? The David, what is it? Camp David. Um
David?
yeah, he's at Camp David. He just posted some one of Republican National Committee's daughter, like, weirdly on his Truth Social. Said, what a great daughter, and it was not even his daughter, and everyone's like, what a weirdo. He's so inappropriate to children to children and adults and women. It's just like, oh, it's so embarrassing.
Yeah, I think uh, last week I thought we were gonna we're gonna talk a little bit about it, and then we got sidetracked on all the rabbit hole conversations and all of that. And so that was something that was in the news, is like they talked about the thunder and like then people who were pulling out that didn't want to be a part of it, just all of these things with this great big old. And then there's a meme that goes around of showing how he white trashed the White House. So it's just like, like a trailer park where they'd have junk cars all over the place, and then that's what they showed, where he just tore down the east wing, and then just put this big old gymnasium thing in the front yard, and all of this stuff to appease his mental his mental capacity, or his mental well-being, or I don't know. It was very weird. And then these are the rich and the elite, right? These are like the billionaires, and so they think this is class, I guess. And everybody who is not billionaires are looking at that like, this is not class. This is like they're trying to do the Roman thing, right? Like make sports, make that what was it during the Roman era where they'd had the gladiators, where the
Yeah.
gladiators would go in and fight till death.
Well, I mean, you can see it. We're such at the end of a place where you know we even take him seriously. I mean, there's very few people that do, that take the whole thing seriously. And how can you take them seriously when we know now for 10 years, some of us known about what's in those Epstein files, and the mainstream power structure does nothing, continuously does nothing. And so that's why, the Democrats are as implicated in the Trump, situation, the Trump drama, all this stuff. Because I was listening to a little bit ago, Professor Kwame Ture, who talked about when Reagan was in there in the 80s, and everyone was like, oh, we got to, get rid of Reagan once Reagan's gone. No, 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 no. We'll have a series of very charismatic actors for the capitalist state, right? I mean, I think that we're either colonial or we're capitalist, but we got to get rid of the what's happening now, and we really are sort of mimicking history in America with the Industrial Revolution and the people, the robber barons, and all of that time, and things are changing. I think people are really understanding that we don't have to live that way, and capitalism is not the way, and it's not actually, so I think the younger generation is not thinking like, we have to make money, but we just want to live a good life. And I think that's why, so many millennials are just like, they don't care about, and I don't want to generalize, but there's no, they're not trying to win the rat race. They're just trying to live a good life. And I think that's the difference between, people who are consumed with capitalism and people and hierarchy. Because, I mean, it's just like, the Nazis were a hierarchical regime, and the Nazis are us, right? So we created the Nazis in so many ways, and still, you know, perpetuate that sort of ideology. We hired all their scientists, went right in there and said, hey, come on, Operation Paperclip, come on over and become a part of our structure, our scientific structure. The more I learn about science and the academics, the more I know that I'm glad I never, pursued higher education. No offense, Maggie, because no offense for folks who did. And I appreciate those of us Indigenous people who did go into that. But, the most highest, I think, celebrated academic was the guy who created eugenics. And, all over the country was the guy who was like, oh yeah, this is exactly the way it is. And, science is something that gives, it's different, it's white people's magic, right? It's white people's like it, we this is how we debunk magic, because these are the facts. And I think that we when, seeing Trump and the mainstream media and all this stuff, and knowing that the Epstein folks are behind all of our, textbooks and all the mainstream media, it really sort of makes me have a very uh, skeptical view of history, right? I mean, I think that that they've controlled the narrative for so long, that a lot of the stuff that they tell us is lies. And a lot of the things that could probably help us, they continue to demonize and all that stuff. Just like, communism, like they communism is so horrible. It's so horrible, so horrible, so horrible. People are starving over there. Well, we are starving here. Like, what do you mean? People are starving over there. People are starving here. And I think that, people don't really understand that, folks like us who live next to and within and around poverty, real poverty, that there's a choice that you make, and it's either you feel ashamed that you can't do this, or you realize that this is just something that's not made of us, right? This is not something that we do, and we go on and we live our lives and we do what we can, and we're helpful and we do whatever, but and we create an alternative to capitalism, right? There's all kinds of alternatives, systems, honorariors. There's a way that we live without it. We can do that, and I think people are so consumed by the idea that corporations need to exist and corporations are good people. They have never been good people. They've never made good decisions, and yet we just think they're going to, because the market is somehow going to make them. The market is made up of people like Elon Musk, who was gifted, billions of dollars from his father, who owned the emerald mine in South Africa. He was a racist, and they were racist. He's a racist now, and did a Heil Hitler at the president's inauguration, and we pretend like these folks are not a regime that's exterminating folks. They literally are. And we're all just like watching the World Cup.
Yeah.
A lot of people are, and no offense to people who are watching the World Cup. I mean, that's the thing, is that, like, there's very little entertainment in this world. People feel very, bad and alone and fearful and frightened, and um it's hard, is thinking of looking at the freaking, infantile, predator president, shitting all over the world. Like, did you see him? There was something from the G7. There was, and all the other like leaders obviously got a whiff of poopy pants right live. I mean, come on, how embarrassing. Like, America is so embarrassing. And then too, I want to say, I have nothing personally against Obama and all this stuff, but I do have a lot against, George Bush and Bill Clinton. And I mean, Obama too, yes, because his policies were shit, but like, all of them sort of being the counter to Trump, when yet they are also war criminals. And, Bill Clinton all over those files. We know that for sure. And his attorney, that one person who worked for Obama there, arranging stuff with Jeffrey Epstein. So come on, Obama's like attorney, who I'm sure he talked to like every day, arranging stuff with Jeffrey Epstein. Come on, like, you can't lay down with dogs and think you're not going to have fleas, right, Maggie? I mean, it's all infected.
I like your analogies there.
Yeah. Well, it's gross. Like, and I want to, and I don't want to feel like that. It's just heartbreaking, because I've spent my whole life doing politics. I've been, in and out of this stuff, wanting to believe that people were going to do the right thing. And as it turns out, a lot of people are, the right thing is what's best for them. And, politics is full of people who, really just want to be in power, it seems, not to actually make change. Watching what's happening in Lebanon now, after what happened in Gaza, is just like, it was devastating. It's demoralizing. It's heartbreaking. And I feel like every day for our Palestinian friends, like I'm so sorry. Like, what, the only reason I even feel any um you know I feel guilt is because, but I don't really feel guilt because we're literally being attacked on our streets right now. I mean, there was a girl who was killed, what baby killed over in Walmart over, a
Diapers.
doll diapers. Like they killed a woman out of for diapers, and
No, it was a baby. They killed the toddler, the 1 year old. That too
oh,
was killed,
so I mean, so that.
unalived, or whatever is politically safe on these platforms.
Yes, and we just carry on like this is a normal thing, and just continue to give credence to the police who are slave catchers. I brought it up before, but I'll bring it up again. That woman who goes through the list of all the police who are arrested every week for molesting and assaulting people. Right? They do it all the
Yeah.
time because you get power corrupts. You give people power, they're gonna use that over the people. It's been proven time and time and time again. I've been to Auschwitz. I saw what power does, and people. I think about the way that chattel slavery is just something that we just passed over here in America. We just passed over it. It's just like we forgot about it. But um, they just we had to physically fight in order to be able to go to the same shops. And I was listening to something this morning about Malcolm X and oh no, Martin Luther King, and I think Louis Farrakhan at the time, who was saying, why are we trying to even integrate? Let's just build our own stuff. Let's just do our own. Why are we giving them our dollars? And I do think that there is something um, in that I don't think that white people are ever going to give up that identity. And it's gonna be something where some of those people are gonna die white, and some people will have to be imprisoned or have to be killed, because a lot of people are gonna fight those race wars, and if that's what it's gonna come to. But again, I feel like that's what they're trying to make us to do. And here's the other thing too, Megan. We had talked last week. We went on those alien rabbit holes because they wanted us to, right? That's out there in the media, so they're talking about it. Apparently there's four of them, different aliens. Now we've heard more over the week, and they say also there's a couple of different like events, and I didn't mention it last time, but the one that I heard just before we got on. So maybe it's whatever, but about on August 12th, there's supposed to be an event where we lose gravity, and gravity is supposed to be like for 12 seconds or something. We're gonna lose gravity, and that's why everyone's got the underground bunkers. So they're going to go to their underground bunkers, and the rest of us, whatever, and everything
They'll
gets.
have gravity in the underground bunker, but we won't have gravity, or what?
Yeah, and so we're just going to fly up in the air until for 12 seconds and then come right back down to however far we went. So theoretically, if you're inside of a building, you should be fine. Or in a cave or something like that. So I think that folks are, if they know about it, and they have been talking about underground cities, all that kind of stuff, maybe that they're going to do it and let us all know about it. Or maybe they're just not going to let us know about it, and they're going to all of a sudden 3 days
Float
beforehand.
away, and it will just float away.
Yeah, then they'll be done with having to deal with the rest of us, right? I mean, that might be their plan. So good thing the Black Hills have a lot of caves, so we could all just head out
Because
there.
because if we go back to Antarctica, we would know that that's where the gravity switch is, right? Like that's where they just turn it off, and then we'll all just flat Earth out of here,
Hey,
right?
I mean, who knows? Like, and the thing about it is that we do not know. What we know as people is that Creator put us here, and we are relatives, and we are supposed to have a good time every day. And I think that that's what pisses white people off about us mostly, is because like we have a good day every day mostly. I mean, we have our bad days, we have our trauma, but mostly, we're just concentrated on doing our things. And if we do our prayers, and we make our sacrifices, do our ceremonies, and continue our life ways, Creator's going to take care of us, right? That's the agreement that we have with Creator. And so that is something that still exists even after all these 500 years of empire and all this stuff. So, the
Don't you
anti.
think, don't you think that like we can start dismantling whiteness as well by just calling them like European Americans?
Yeah,
Because
well,
because they take this claim of being an American, right? Like, so then they come here from Europe, they came here to this continent, and then they base their whiteness off of the, well, this, we're in America and I'm an American, and everybody else is not a true American because they have some kind of other. So you have an African American, you have Native Americans, you have um
Asian Americans. Yeah.
Asian
Yeah.
Americans, Arab Americans, things like that. So if we just started calling them European Americans, and then even, there's some of our applications that we have control over that we can put that, like identify and then put European American. What is your ethnicity? The ethnicity they put along Hispanic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hispanic is like the only ethnicity that they identify. But then you have people that want to claim ethnic Jew. So how come they don't have like that as an option? I'm ethnically Jew. I'm an ethnic Jewish person or whatever. So if ethnicity is based off of um culture, or like you moved away from your culture. I've made this argument before, like, so if a Christian person, if they decided that they were going to become atheists, kind of like the ethnic Jewish people, then would they be considered ethnic Christian? Because they I mean, they still practice some of those beliefs, but they don't full on do all of them. And so that's what gives the ethnic Jewish person the right. I mean, I've been researching all of this stuff and looking at how people classify and themselves to legitimize themselves, right? That's the biggest thing, is they want to legitimize themselves because you are not practicing your Judaism. So you have moved away, so you became an atheist. And so in the atheist movement, then you want to go back because you need to legitimize yourself, because now you're an atheist. You're just a nobody, right? You've moved away from everything. You just said, I'm atheist. I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in that belief. And so I'm now an atheist and I believe in nothing but maybe science, but then that might be questionable now too. But anyway, so I believe in nothing. I'm an atheist. And so you go through the process of
Agnostic. I think
declaring
it's
and
called
saying,
an agnostic when you don't
no,
know.
agnostic is whenever you still believe in something, but you just
Oh,
don't believe the way. You don't believe in the way. You still
okay.
believe in something, but you believe that there's a higher being or
Oh, okay. All
whatever, but
right.
you just don't believe it. So an atheist believes there is no God,
Yeah,
right? And so
that's
in
right.
order for these guys to legitimize themselves and to make them, they have to create ethnic Jewish. So you see that ethnic Jewish. So I argue or ask, well, is there such a thing then for ethnic Christians?
Yeah.
Pe- People who were Christian and then decided they're going to be atheist. Or how about for people who are Islamic? So then do they become ethnic Islamic because they decided they're going to become atheist? And then how about like indigenous people? Like people who have just decided that they're going to be atheists too. So do they become ethnic Lakota?
Yeah, no, you could go on, and that's I think the magic of white supremacy is because it's so complicated and it's very different because it's really just tied to power, right? Like it's about power. Like who, think about the brown and black people, ICE officers, and police officers right now. Like we are policing ourselves and doing our own work for white supremacy or capitalism. Both, right? It's both, because the cops started being slave catchers, and the military have been always killing the merciless savages. You know, when America started, it was set in the Constitution. It's set. Black folks are 3/5 of people, and indigenous peoples are merciless savages. And so, you know, it America can't exist without the genocide of our people, right? And so, if you are thinking in any way that America is a just place of liberty and all this stuff, then from the get-go, you got the wrong understanding. And unless you want, you know, that you think that the death of millions of us was, you know, was necessary in order for you to create this most magnificent union, which only right now, you know, has imprisoned what, I mean, how many people do we have imprisoned? This magnificent union where people can barely afford to go anywhere because they can't get gas. This most magnificent union where their big fat slob of a president is shitting all over freaking all the everyone else. I mean, this is what we're supposed to be like proud of. And so, you know, I think the status quo is white supremacy, and it's you know, this is all good and let's continue this. And if you think that it's just Trump, like it's just Reagan, you know, you're in a you're in the box of the oppressor. I mean, you really do. You got to admit that, you know, at a certain point, you have to disengage from that system. Otherwise, you perpetuate that system. And, you know, I haven't been organizing in a long time. I'm going to be doing something that'll, you know, make me feel better about stuff. But I haven't been organizing for a long time because I realized that it's pointless to continue to uh, engage with people who are committed to the status quo. And there's a lot of people in Indian country committed to the status quo because they're okay with our separateness from being you know, from being you know, Americans, but they just want to be, you know, Native Americans. They don't want to be Lakota, right? There's a big difference between being a Native American and being a Lakota, and not a lot of our leaders talk about that shit. And so that's why I have been, you know, sort of, you know, backing away from organizing because it's very complicated. You can't change people's paradigm unless they're willing to, you know, I think what we have to do as you know, moral, ethical people in America, we have to you know, challenge ourselves and our beliefs about white supremacy, and about our beliefs about the patriarchy and capitalism, because I think capitalism is basically the patriarchy, right? Power, it's all about, you know, that. And if you don't challenge those things and and heal them, heal those beliefs that you have, that, you know, that there's a hierarchy and there's some people that, you know, aren't any good, you know, whatever, we're never going to have anything, any kind of alternative. And so, you know, a lot of ways I feel like so much that the indigenous people in North America have been, you know, that assimilation might have taken hold with too many of us, and the trauma might be too deep. And so we need to look to other indigenous peoples in Canada and other places to help guide us back to who we are, because being an American is so hard. Like, it just makes you want to be proud. Like, I watched a TikTok where a lady was like, "Oh, we just found out that we're in the World Cup. The world, there is a World Cup, and there's a game called football. I mean, soccer, and we're in it. And but guess what? We're American, so we're in it now, and I want us to win it." And then, you know, she was all excited, and I felt excited. I feel excited talking about the America winning the World Cup, like exciting, because it's ingrained, right? I mean, it's ingrained to me so much. You know, it's a fear-based trauma response. You know, pride, American, right? I mean,
Everything's a fear-based trauma response. It's like, holy crap, man. This is
for
messed up.
real. Yeah, for real.
people don't even realize that even like the Washichu, they don't even realize their own trauma responses, right? Like, why did they come here? Why did they come to these shores? What were they looking for? While they're trying to escape their own traumas. They're trying to do all of that. Well, and then some of it too is kind of like, in the beginning of ICE, remember, they're going to ship us all off to El Salvador or wherever. Well, that's what they did back then, is that the king would just banish you to the new world, is what they called it. They just banish you to the new world, and then you came over here. So then some of those bad actors were already bad acting over there in Europe. They
That's
were
right.
just banished to the new world, and then they had to learn to survive. And so the encounters then that some of our peoples or some of the peoples of this continent would have encountered with them, or their criminal mind stuff. So again, not everybody is like that, but there was a great amount of people that were, and those people came with their whole whatevers, the Puritans, all of them, like whatever their fear-based, fear-mongering, fear everything, that they came over here and was then wanting to do the wrath of God on everybody else over here, because we didn't know their God. We only knew our God. And so now we're evil because we didn't know their God. And I need a shirt that says, I am a merciless savage. Bottom line.
Yeah. Well, and who is the savage? I mean, that's the thing about Jefferson. No, but no. The white people are the savages. I mean, what they did was they. I mean, I think everything like Trump, everything they say is the opposite. Because Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson said, who had babies with his wife's little sister who was a slave. Jefferson, who made big promises about freeing all his slaves, but didn't free all his wife's slaves, which were most of the slaves that he owned, because they were his wife's stuff. So the liberty that America was founded on was racist, right? I mean, the intent of it all was just to disappear us. And the fact that they haven't yet, I'm sure bothers them. And I'm sure it bothers them. And every time there was an
Because
opportunity,
that's why we're sitting in their prisons.
yeah. Well,
Apparently.
that's right. That's right. And everything that we value, they demonize, right? Communism has been demonized since the very beginning. And living in sending your kid off at 18, all of these things are opposite of the way Washichus treat kids. Kids, I mean, they're very abusive to kids, like the spirits, and they're abusive to each other. The trauma that lives within hierarchy affects those kids so much. And I think that we're at a time right now when a lot of empathy has been bred out of us, of these, and we've been assimilated into whiteness, because I think that's what it is. It's like, if you want to be white, you just have to not care about other people. You just have to care about yourself, and you just have to do what makes you happy. And who cares if the iPhone that you're talking into is coming from a little boy with no hands or something. I don't know, it's being dramatic, but like not connecting the way that we live with the way that the world is the problem, right? We're not creating new stuff. We're just invading new lands and taking new ideas and stuff like that. So white people are Americans, and that's the ideal. The ideal is you get more stuff, you have more, you will have more, have more stuff, you have more land, you have more, all this stuff. White people care more about stuff, property, than they care about other people. They care more about dogs than they care about other people. And that's disgusting. And it's disgusting about them. They're disgusting people. They're selfish, they're lazy, they just care about themselves, and they complain when people get anything good, when we have to do like 3 times as much work as they do to get what they get. But whenever we get ahead, then they complain about it and then it goes away, right? Every time, black-owned businesses or black-owned towns were doing good, white people came and destroyed them. Like
Destroyed
literally,
them.
literally killed them, came in, imprisoned them, took all their stuff, stole all their belongings over and over and over again. I
Or
think if
even
any,
just draw lines that keep them out of the market. Draw
yeah,
lines that now they can't get loans, now they can't nothing. And then you go and arson, burn down their buildings and you terrorize and torment them. And then you do that, and then now they don't have the money to rebuild. So then you just come in and you just buy up all their land. And
that's
then
right.
then they don't have anything. I mean,
That's
it's the
right.
same thing. We've
Right.
we've experienced that where they just came and diced up our land and then split out our families and said you guys can't be together anymore, so we're
Well,
gonna put this family over here and this one over here and this one over there, and then that's just where it's gonna be, and then you're gonna learn to struggle on your own.
and then we're going to make fun of you for not being able to take care of your children. And then we're going to judge you for being ignorant of the rules, the bureaucracy, so that you don't get part of the farm service agencies. So you don't qualify for that. So you can't get these credits that these black people or these white people get who have come and taken our land, right? I mean, so they came during the Second Allotment Act or whatever they call it, and they took all of our land because we couldn't pay the taxes that we didn't even know we had to pay. And so they came in and took all the land. So all of a sudden, we owed all these taxes, and they changed that law right away. But guess what? They're non-Indians are still living here. Timberlake, South Dakota still exists. All these white people came in and took that land that we didn't even know we were going to lose. And then blame us because they live on our land, and we remind them that. And we remind
Or you
them.
take Bennett County and you say Bennett County is not within the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation anymore. The state does it, but according to the federal government, it is within the boundaries of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. So the state takes it out and says no. Federal government says yes.
Yeah.
But it's all, and then it's the craziest thing is most of the ranchers in that area, most of them uh have descendancy to the Oglala Sioux tribe. And so then but then they hated the Oglala Sioux tribe because whenever we had the blood quantum as a requirement for enrollment, once that changed and when there was blood quantum, they hated the old, we were the laziest Indians, we were just, whatever, criminals. And then as soon as the tribe changed that, they come over, get themselves enrolled, and then now that's who they are. So then it's like, well, why don't you incorporate your land then? Why don't you put your land, put it into trust then?
Yeah. Well,
It's kind of like all of this crazy stuff that happens in regards to how we classify and the things that they do um to divide us, to other us. And so then those of us on the reservation were the other, and then they'll other us even more. So then, oh, those are the Lakotas, those ones speak Lakota, they're bad. They're backwards. They don't even know. Oh, those ones live in the district. They don't live around the town, so they're just dirty. Then they go on like that. That's kind of like how they other us. And then so then we start looking at each other and we start othering back. And then that's where we start saying, oh, look at those hang around the forts.
Yeah.
Oh, check those
Yeah.
guys out. Look at those sellouts over there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
they
Well,
other, and then we divide. Then we
that's
can't get along.
that's capitalism, right? It's capitalism. They have the haves and the have-nots. And the problem with that on the res is that, the haves have had for 3 generations now. I'm from a family who's at, 3 generations worth of wealth from a trader trapper family, here on my reservation. Has that still exist? Well, for some of us, yeah, not for all of us. But that those inconsistencies have existed because the system rewards whiteness and understanding whiteness, and people who are comfortable going between the two cultures are usually people who are comfortable, making money off of our culture as well. Like I think that there's a commodification of our poverty and a commodification of our culture that happens all the time. And we have to be responsible for that, because as Lakota people, like our lives are not easy, especially in this time of utter despair, in the world. If you are not affected by what is happening happening, then you have lost your sense of humanity, so your sense of Lakotaness, that relatedness. And if you think that, spending all of our energy, doing something that makes us look good, but doesn't, work to make us feel good or, better, to be better, then you're just doing what they want you to do, which is, putting a Band-Aid on a gaping, wound that's festering full of maggots. Like, come on, like we got a huge problem here. It's not going to be solved by us continuing to be little washichus. We got to, start to be able to build trust and, reconnect and build community. But it's so hard. White supremacy and the patriarchy, it infects people's ethics. And I think, the difference between us and them is that they have no ethics, right? They have no ethics. People will lie, cheat, steal, and do whatever washichos, right? That's just the way it is. That's what they've done. And they've done since the very beginning. If you look at the Constitution, go from there. And, and stolen from us, the Iroquois, and then not including us, and then just erasing us and creating a land, on our land just because we didn't follow the same laws that they do. I mean, just that in itself, is the opposite of what our values are, right? So in order for us to reconnect with, living simply as Lakota people, I think that a lot of that is, sort of taking a look at, our relationship to money, with our relationship to power, with our relationship to whiteness, and the goods that we get, if we're half breeds, all that stuff. I try not to use that word anymore, but also I own that word because I literally am that word. 3 generations worth of half breeds sitting right here in front of you. That's my mom is non-Indian from California. My dad, multiple generations of trader trapper. So this is whiteness and capitalism are things that we have had to navigate for many generations as Lakotas. And what we look like now is pretty complicated. And frankly, I think that I don't know. For me, like I said, I'm not organizing anymore. I spent the last couple of days in my garden, so I've been really happy. And but tired at the end of the day too, because it's hard to continuously, have a head full of knowledge about what's happening every day, everywhere, and be able to continuously then feel peace and love inside, and be a good relative. It's hard. So it's been nice to be able to just pour this love into all my little plants and all that, and just be like, this is a crazy world, and it's hard right now. So and had a lot of good visits from some birds. We had a Baltimore Oriole and a little bit of a warbler kind of thing. And so I think that people just really need to, I think in order for us to be better is to just disconnect from all that stuff and stay in your lane, and and do what you can to improve, everything around you. I think that's the Lakota way. That's indigeneity. That's the opposite of rape culture, which come in, take in, do this. I control the land. The land is mine. That is not at all something we would ever say.
Um, I think that's a lot, but it's kind of always, it seems like we stir in that quite a bit, like we have this understanding of our deficits because the whole capitalism is based off of deficits. And so when you think about where I am short, and then where my community is short, my family is short, like all of those things, like we're deficit based. And so when you focus on your deficits, then one of the things that ends up happening is you start trying to figure out ways to get out of a deficit. And so, but you don't really know. Like I could tell you, growing up in the 80s, well, 70s and 80s, I didn't know I was poor. I didn't know I was living in poverty. Yeah, I know that there were times that we went without food. Yeah, I know there's things like that happened, but nobody told me that was poverty. Nobody told me that was bad. It was just the way it was. That's what happened. And then my mother did the best that she could. My dad, when he was in our lives, he did the best that he could to make sure that we were provided for. And so those are the things in which the destruction of society. So all of that starts to change. Food stamps come. We already get commods, our rations, but food stamps come, and then we used to get like the GA assistance through the BIA, and then that turned into like you can apply to the state for TAN or for welfare, and so then the welfare mindset comes in, and it isn't, like you created this system and said we have to live in it, but then there's no opportunity in which you have opportunity because you create rules that say that we can't hunt at this time, we can't do this at this time, we can't do that at that time. And so you create the um the rules for opportunity. And then from there, okay, the federal government is going to give the state, instead of giving it directly to the tribe, we're going to give your treaty dollars, we're going to give those to the state, and the state is going to create a rule because they already have a rule that they've created in regards to welfare and helping people in poverty, so they already have that rule in place. So we're going to go ahead and give your treaty dollars to the state, and the state is going to come up with some kind of rules in which they're going to determine what your family looks like. And then they criminalize the dads. So all the
That's right.
dads get criminalized, and
Right.
then you cannot be a part of the family anymore. And
Right.
so dads start to get kicked out. And so we learn as women, we know that even if I love him, he can't, if this is the only way I can create or bring money into my household, even though I love him, I have to be dishonest. And I
Right.
have to be dishonest and say he doesn't live here, even though he does live here, even though he is here trying to help. And so we create this hardship then in our families and in our for children and for men and for women. So we break up the family. So before, as I was saying in the allotment, what they did was and this happened to my family. So my great great grandmother, she got put over here in Porcupine, way away from her sisters and her siblings, her parents, way over here, and then have to figure out how to survive over here with her children and all of that, because that was her allotment. So but at least you still had your children, and you still could still have your husband, and you could still try to figure out how to survive. So now once they separated us out like that, now we're going to go into this process. We need to deteriorate this even more, because we need you guys to be nothing. We need you to like lose your whole identity. And so then now we're going to create a rule that says dads cannot be in the picture. Dads have to go somewhere else. And then we're going to criminalize them, because now they're going to owe child support. So even though the dad may be living with you, the dad may be helping you, but because you're getting some form of TANF or food stamps or something like that, that you have to be dishonest as a woman. You have to be dishonest and say that he is not a part of your life. And so now he has a bill for child support. And so then that child support goes into a process of you can't get a job because we're going to take your driver's license. We're going to do all of these different things. So the Lakota man and the Black man, they get so sanctioned that they cannot even move. And so then you go into this process of like, how then? How are we supposed to survive? So we all just sit here, we say nothing, and then we try to figure out a way to get assistance. And so you and the system, or the system has completely demoralized us. The whiteness in which the world wants to rule has completely demoralized us, so that, and then it's doing the same thing, to the Mexicans. It's doing the same thing to other people of color. And so all of those things in which we end up like then less than. So now the deficit is so bad that now I might have to start looking at ways in which I have to now operate illegally. So now, in order to help and survive, and I can't leave the reservation because they have a warrant for my arrest because I owe child support, even though I may have been paying child support or providing for my family. So it's a racket. They create a racket in which we have to survive in. And oh, by the way, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, all the fathers. Happy Father's Day.
It's so demoralizing, because truly, if you can't have empowered men in the patriarchy, like they do these things in order to demoralize our men and demoralize our families, and to create to get rid of the ethnic identity, right? It's on purpose, to create demoralized men and families, and I think that, so we buy stuff, so we buy the stuff that gives us comfort, and that's what keeps us poor, the comfort stuff that keeps us poor. Well, so my life is miserable, I get beat up, everyone, I've been raped, all this stuff. At least I'm gonna freaking watch my shows, right? Like, so I'm gonna do those things that make me happy. And guess what? You should be able to, but we should be living in a place where people have the opportunity to thrive. We do not have that right now, nowhere besides in the ultra wealthy and the upper middle class, and the generational wealthy in America. We need to be having charging those guys with taxes, reparation taxes. Our tribes could be acting and governing like tribal organizations, but we organize and we live like little Washichus. And so we could think about our systems in different ways and give our people the leg up that we need, rather than the demoralizing effects of poverty. Poverty is a policy. Poverty is a policy choice. And until all of our IRA leaders understand that, then then we won't get any further. And people really need to have some education. And the reason why we don't have education about class and all this stuff is because we are educated by the Epstein class, right? They don't have any desire to educate us on economics. They keep the conversation about economics, so trickle down, eventually it'll get to you guys. We just got to keep the growing class growing. We've got to keep giving to these guys. The amount of, millions and trillions of dollars that they spend in economic development in Indian country is shameful. If we took, half of what they invest in failed businesses and failed businessmen and failed business opportunities, and put it into a universal basic income, so that all of our people could have every month, $1,000, $2,000, whatever we could do, that would create an even playing field that we've never had. it would be the rations in America that would expand everything too. And we could afford that. We could afford to do a universal basic income off of, 1 trillion of, Mr. Trillionaire white supremacist Elon Musk, who has a breeding fantasy. All these white people have these really weird breeding things. They want to breed, the white out of people. They want to breed the white into people. They want to breed all these genetics. Creator gave us, all of us, these different these chromosomes. He wrote into us a design that is pretty amazing, and we're like, amazing, wonderful beings as we are. But when you start to, create humans in the eye of you, then you're creator. And so many of these narcissists, think that we have children and they should be just like us. We have, everything should be just like what we are. And we're Indigenous people. We're not narcissists. We're very other centered and community center. We identify by who identifies with us, right? Like we are a community, and who claims you is who claims you, right? And who do you claim? Do you claim Elon Musk as one of your people, right? I mean, is that who you want to be? And I think that that matters, and that conversation doesn't happen enough in Indian country. And what are the values that we hold dear, and how do we govern? Because we govern ourselves. We're not just governed. We govern ourselves, and we at a certain point, can take that and use it and wield the power of our sovereignty as given to us by the federal government, because sovereignty doesn't get given to people. But anyway, that sovereignty that we have that exists, we could do a lot more than we do with it, Maggie. I pray all the time that we do that. And I think before we visit again, or maybe next week, we're going to be celebrating Peji Shla, the greasy grass victory that we had. And I want everyone, I think, to know and to remember that, I remember, and I'm sure you do too, Maggie, that it was a woman that killed Custer. I think it was a Cheyenne woman, or Northern Cheyenne, someone. That's the story. And I guess,
The Cheyenne woman, I can't remember her name right now. I
right.
just had it, and then it
Yeah,
just
was
left.
it something that rain? It wasn't rain rain in her face or something. Anyway, she had to do it, and it had to be done. And so I think that when women will do things when they have to be done, and we need to put more of our baskets and more of our are not more of our energy into what women have been doing, Indigenous women doing for a long time, taking care of the camp, taking care of the teepee. We need to start asking them what to do, right?
Right. And I think
Us.
that I think so today is the solstice, and then like this is Chaz and I, before we came on live, we were saying, it's the solstice. It's Father's Day, but it's solstice also. And in the solstice, it's the longest day, shortest night kind of thing. And then this is also the reminder every year that we're heading back to winter. And so I hope that people in the solstice are thinking about those things, and they're getting themselves ready, because this is the time that we know we're going to start heading back to winter. And so harvesting, all of those things are important things culturally for food sovereignty, or even just for survival. Like sometimes we say things like that, we give because that might be the catch, the hashtag that's gonna catch everybody, like mini Wachoni, that went all over the world. And so food sovereignty is something that is, and people write grants for and stuff, but it's actually like survival. So we want to be able to survive into the future, so we need to be knowing that today marks the day, and our ancestors would know this. Indigenous people in the world knew this when this time hit. On the other side of the world, they're getting ready for, maybe a different time, getting ready for coming out of their winter or whatever. But but we are getting ready to go towards winter. And so doing that, we should be preparing, making sure we're taking care of our food, and then also harvesting. So you have to have planted food in order to harvest. And also, like, I didn't get to do it. I did not get to go team slaw digging. I usually do that, and I didn't get to do that this year because things have been very crazy for me. So I didn't get to do that. Now I have to go see if somebody will sell me some team slaw to get me through. But so those are the things like that we have to know. We have to know that in order to survive, there's work that we have to do outside of the things of capitalism. I am not wearing my glasses today because last weekend I went to sleep and I put them on my nightstand and they disappeared. And so I say the Wee-Weelas got my glasses. So at some point in time, they might return them to me. And so I have to wear contact lenses now. So my eyeballs have been adjusting to contacts. Chaz?
Oh my, no, I was just gonna say that as food, you don't have to plant all the food. Like in my garden this year, I have all kinds of cilantro that has just replanted itself. It's like everywhere. So if anyone wants any cilantro right now, it reseeds itself. I've been trying to do my garden as a perennial so that I can just, have things every year that continue to grow. I think that we need to go back to knowing what we're eating, where we're eating, where it's coming from. And, because we know from the Epstein files, they're not regulating anything. They're making sure they're regulating a few businesses. The rest of the stuff is just like, who knows? They're feeding us trash, and we should know that. And so you shouldn't be feeding your kids things that you don't know where they came from. And it's true. Like if you want these guys to be living, we shouldn't. We are having poorer health outcomes for our youth than we did us, and that is not okay. What we should be, the youth should always outlive us. So it's something in the air. It's something that they're feeding. It's something that we're doing. So folks should definitely be making sure that they know what they're eating and take care of themselves. Because one of the things that capitalism says that we shouldn't do is that we shouldn't enjoy ourselves, and we shouldn't have a nice life. And I think that that's one of the things that bother white people about Black people so much, because they have so much joy, and they give so much creativity and just entertainment to the world everywhere. And I think one of the things I saw on a TikTok was that if you saw the World Cup, all of the major players from everywhere were Black. And so it's like, because of colonization, there's Black people everywhere. And I think that, one of the things that, in Indigenous people and Black people, we are the same, in that America wanted to erase us and subjugate us. That was the first thing. And if we don't get justice, the rest of everyone is not going to be, there's nothing's going to ever come. So I just want to say that, make sure you take care of your garden. And also, we're always working toward, a place where we can live, be good relatives, and get paid to be a good relative, and just, all the stuff. We can do that. We're just stuck in this paradigm where we have to eat each other alive in order to survive, to climb to the top of that pie. You know what I mean?
Living in the blood libel.
Yep, that's what we're doing. So anyway, thank you so much for everyone for listening and watching, and for you, Maggie. We'll see you.
See you. Thanks for joining us, Chaz.
Yep.
So with that, next week we will have the conversation in regards to the greasy grass. Everybody's heading in that direction, it sounds like. I know all the Lakota tribes are heading that way. So that happens on Thursday. So I don't know. I won't be live over there. I thought about it, but then I don't know. I can't get into the commercialization of stuff either. So I will probably be here in Porcupine. So with that, you guys, thanks for joining us. You have a great rest